Hello.
Yes, ma'am. 5 minutes.
I'm Professor Devra Davis from Mount Sinai Medical Center. I'm also the founder of Environmental Health Trust. I also organized the first scientific conference in Washington, D.C. on this subject with the expert meeting, all of which is available on our website. I'm also one of the organizers of that pamphlet that you see there that Ellie Marks has worked on along with Lloyd Morgan, and many of the people in this room have contributed to it. I also testified before Senator Specter and Senator Harkin, and I have a phone book to give you that we gave them of testimony that we put together from experts from around the world. The eyes of the world are on Maine today. You are very important to all of us, and you give an opportunity for America to be very proud that this state is considering this important piece of legislation. Next slide. I'm going to talk just a little bit about what we know about heavy cell phone use, and let me be clear about something. The Danish Cancer Society study that you've heard about started out with 700,000 people in the early 1990s. Think of this. How many of you used a cell phone in 1990? All right? And that study defined as a user anyone who made 1 call a week for 6 months. And it excluded from the study over 200,000 people who were business users. It excluded the heaviest users from the study because they said they couldn't be sure whether that phone was shared by people. Not an unreasonable exclusion. So they were left with the people who used the phone the least, sometimes 1 call a week for 6 months. And the average user in that study used a phone for 6 years. Now you heard from my distinguished colleagues here today, Dr. Carpenter and others, that the latency, the period between exposure and development of a brain tumor, we think is generally 10 years. For children, it may be shorter. So doing that study, it was the largest study ever done, and finding no results does not give us any reason for great relief. Next. Here are some of the things that have been shown in recent studies to be significantly increased in heavy cell phone users. I'm going to go through them very briefly. Parotid or salivary gland tumors, that's right here. Acoustic neuroma, that's right here. Can I get the brain back, by the way? The brain, I was going to show you in the brain. Malignant brain tumors you've heard about. You haven't heard as much about reduced sperm count, memory loss, insomnia, and DNA damage. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of what an acoustic neuroma is, it is a tumor that will show up on the hearing nerve, and quite obviously and logically, the hearing nerve is in close proximity, obviously, to where the phone comes in, right? And this analysis, which was done by Monica Hahn and published in the Journal of Surgical Neurology by my team, including one of the world's leading neurosurgeons in the world, Dave Lunsford, who invented the gamma knife, this analysis that our team published shows a doubled risk of acoustic neuroma only showing up after 10 years of use, heavy use. Next slide. There's the benign brain tumor, often benign, of an acoustic neuroma. You can see where it occurs. You can see the ear on the outside. It's obviously going to be an area of exposure. Next slide. This is a copy from the peer-reviewed article that just appeared on parotid gland tumors, a case-control study comparing people who had this tumor. Here's the parotid gland, okay? Right here, inside here, right by the cheek, okay? Next slide. There's the parotid gland. Click one more time, Lloyd, and you see exactly where the cell phone is. Next slide. Between 1970 and 2006, the Israeli Dental Association showed a significant increase of malignant tumors right there. And after 2002, the rate for the entire country starts to increase. 1 in 5 cases since 2002 is under the age of 20. Now, while parotid gland tumors typically do occur in the young, this is unusual. Next. Next, keep clicking on that. This is a study that came from the Cleveland Clinic, and I'm sorry, it shows you men who don't use a cell phone have the heaviest sperm count, the highest. This is not just sperm count, it's sperm damage. Men who in the Cleveland Clinic reported using a cell phone for 4 hours a day had about half the sperm count and twice the damage of men who did not use cell phones. And this is not one study. There are studies in Australia, studies in Eastern Europe, all showing the same thing. Next. Keep clicking. Keep clicking. Now, cell phone use among children. I'm here today as a scientist who's deeply concerned, but I'm also a mother and a grandmother. And what I'm concerned about is that we are in the midst of a large, uncontrolled experiment on our children. Next. Many governments, keep clicking now, have issued warnings, some of which are in this pamphlet, about reducing children's exposure, and I'm working with officials in France, in Germany, in Israel now to increase their warnings, and warning labels are on the table. Next. Next, keep going. This is what France is proposing: to ban advertising for children, to ban the design of phones unique for children. Next slide. And these are some of the warnings that are appearing in public in France. Keep going. Those are my grandchildren. I can think of no better place to end for you. All right?
Perfect, perfect.
And you can click one more. Our website has detailed information. I've been working on this for more than 5 years. I have just published a book, which we're going to make available to you in paperback, where I detail what has gone on here in this story. Thank you.
Thank you. Many others seem to be propelled into this by a family tragedy. Did you get propelled, or is it something else? Never mind.
No, it's all right. I'm a cancer orphan, although when you get to be a certain age, you can't really think of yourself as an orphan. I lost both my parents to cancer. Not in this instance. My father was one of these gadget geeks. You know, we were the first people to have a garbage disposal. He was the first man to have a cell phone in his car. He loved gadgets. He served in the military for more than 30 years. And I can't tell you what killed him, because I'm a scientist and I can't be sure. But I certainly think that this could have been one of the many things that he was exposed to.
Thank you. Now, Representative Lewin, you've got the right person.
Thank you, Senator. I knew we'd get there.
Sure.
On page 8 of this book, it says, State of Maine, U.S. In 2009, an emergency bill requiring warning labels on cell phones unanimously passed a committee of the Maine State Legislature.
Huh?
Did something pass through this legislature last year that I
No.
missed, or are we
No,
printing
ma'am.
something that's untrue?
I'm very, very glad you pointed that out. That's a mistake. And that's why this pamphlet has on it draft, and we had people by hand correcting it. Those of you, turn to page 8. Do you have it crossed out on page 8?
No, it's not.
Well, I guess that we made a mistake.
And
I very much appreciate your correcting it. No, I appreciate your correcting it. We'll take them back and cross them out, because that's what we had intended to do. And, but I want to say we are very grateful for your leadership here, and I want to apologize for this error, and I'm glad that you did notice it. Thank you.
He's, how many people, how many, he's going to give you? Representative Campbell? Lewin,
Sorry about that.
We'll now be going as soon as Representative Campbell is done.
The Federal Communications Commission states that there is no scientific evidence that proves that wireless phone usage can lead to cancer or a variety of other problems, including headaches, dizziness, loss of memory. Do you disagree with the FCC?
No, I don't disagree with them. It's just incomplete in that what they're talking about is human evidence. And even there, in that regard, you have to understand, as I think you all know, officials, whether at the federal or state level right now, are overworked and understaffed, and they really are. And the FCC does not have a single health expert on its staff. Not one person who works for the FCC has any background in health at all. They are relying on information that actually was given to them in 1996, based on studies completed in 1985. We are dealing with a lot of catch-up in the government right now, and with tremendous budget shortfalls. I don't need to tell you about that. All over this country. And one of the consequences is that our ability to tap health information is limited. Your health department is strapped right now. They've got more to do and less to do it with. And so they can't possibly be up to date on all of these things. That's why I really am pleased to be working with colleagues here. We are working with health experts and health departments in Pennsylvania, in California, and hopefully in Maine, to show them what the newest information is that they don't have access to. And in the case of the FCC, their conclusion rests on outdated information. Current information, some of which we've shown you here, some of which we've written about, some of which can be available on websites that many people here have developed, will provide more detailed information. And even with that acknowledgement, the FCC does have on its website, if you go to page 3 of this book that we're correcting, that they do tell you what to do to take precautions if you want to reduce exposure, even saying that the evidence is, at this point, not complete. Of course, that's the nature of public health research as it is. We don't want to wait for the body count. If we're doing public health well, we're preventing harm, not proving that we were right.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
will now go to opponents, and